Okay, guys, so for today, we're going to focus on finding the values of a parabola whenever they give you the equation. So just a quick heads up, a review. A parabola is basically when you have a curved line that either goes up or goes down. And the values we are trying to find is basically whenever it crosses the x-axis. A parabola usually crosses twice, once, or 0 times. In this case, we want to find where it crosses the x-axis. Sometimes they call them x-axis. They call them x-intercepts. Sometimes they call them solutions. Sometimes they call them roots. And sometimes they call them zeros. These are 4 different words, but they all mean the same thing. Now, let's talk about how do we find it using this equation then. What is something you notice about these points? When it crosses the x, notice that the x has a value, but what is the y going to be? If it's crossing the x, that means the point is not moving up. The point is not moving down. So therefore, if it's exactly on the x, what's going to be my y value? You guessed it. My y value is actually going to be 0. So all of this, guys, actually has to be 0. So let's go ahead and solve this, guys. If this is 0, let's solve for x. X minus 2 squared minus 9. How do we solve for x, guys? Well, simple. We have to leave the x alone. So I know the x is inside this parenthesis, so I'm going to move everything that doesn't have a parenthesis, which will be the plus 9. I do that on both sides. So we're left with 9 equals parentheses x minus 2 squared. All right, guys, we got ourselves an exponent. I don't know if you guys know the opposite of an exponent, but it's actually the square root, because there's a little square root there. We do it on both sides. So these canceled out, so we have just x minus 2. Now, here is where it gets tricky, guys. This gets tricky because of 2 things. A lot of people might say this is a 3, which they would technically be correct. But when we're doing quadratics, guys, and I'm going to do it over here, guys, when you find the square root of 9, there's actually 2 answers you could get. One of them is, like they said, 3, and the other one could be negative 3. Let me explain why. Because remember, we were supposed to do a square. If we were to square a 3, well, isn't that 3 times 3? We get 9. That's great. But what if we also square a negative 3? Well, isn't that negative 3 times negative 3? And we also get 9. So I know it's kind of confusing, guys, but these are the rules of quadratics. It could be either or. So because we have to look at both options, one of my equations is going to be equal to positive 3. And the other one's going to be equal to negative 3. So we have 2 equations we're going to solve for. Let's go ahead and do that, guys. Add a 2, add a 2. So x is equals to 5. Look, let's do this one, guys. Plus 2, plus 2. And in this one, x is equal to negative 1. Guys, we got ourselves 2 answers. So my x can be either negative 1 or positive 5. And let me tell you why this makes sense. Because if we go up to our parabola, isn't it supposed to be crossing at 2 different places? Didn't we get 2 different solutions? So this is one of the main reasons about parabolas. They could have 2 solutions. Oops. There could be 2 solutions, maybe 1 solution, or actually no solution. But we'll dive deeper into that later. And that's how you find quadratics and parabolas.